is Mackenzie. Hey, this is Owen. Don't forget to like our show and subscribe.
This podcast is brought to you by the Love and Kindness Project Foundation. What is one thing that you could do to think, speak, or act kindly today? Go to loveandkindnessproject.org to learn more. Before we begin this podcast, if you or someone you know is in crisis or needs emotional support, there are tools that can help. So get yourself a pen and paper or open a note-taking app on your phone or computer. Feel free to pause this episode while you get yourself ready. The episode starts at 1 minute and 6 seconds. You can call Talk Suicide Canada at 1-833-456-4566. You can text 45645, which is coming in the fall of 2023. In Canada, you can also call 988, the Kids Help Phone at 1-800-668-6868. The Trans Lifeline in Canada is 1-877-330-6366. And in the United States, 1-877-565-8860, or call 911. You are not alone, and you do not have to be alone. I would like to honor and recognize the traditional and unceded territories of the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo nations on whose territory I live, work, and play. Welcome to We Are the ADHD Family Podcast. This podcast is meant to chronicle our journey with ADHD, autism, and other discoveries along the way. I reach out to advocates, experts, individuals, and other families that want to raise their voices and empower those on their journey. My name is Mark Smeets, and I am passionate about removing barriers for others through creating connections and building on strengths and practical problem solving. I am married to Siobhan, a parent to 2 wonderful kids, and all of us have ADHD. I want you to feel like you have power and hope. And now, into the episode. What does Anakin Skywalker and ADHD have in common according to Obi-Wan Kenobi? We're always on the move. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little Star Wars deep cut quote from Revenge of the Sith. So I'm recording this on September 15th, and last week was a very, very busy week for me. On September 6th, which was a Wednesday evening, I had a presentation with the City of Surrey, and that's Surrey here in Vancouver, not in the UK. And it was basically for proposing a pilot project of having sensory-friendly swim times in our pools. And I thought what I would do is actually use my presentation that I gave to the city and talk you through what I did and what were on the slides. And, maybe there's something that somebody can use here. But this is what I've proposed, and it's been pretty awesome. I basically have been preparing for this for, I think it started in May or June, probably June. So that's a couple months worth of, thinking about what to say, how to put it together. I knew in my head the concept was really simple, but trying to convey it on a slide and trying to reframe disabilities too, for that matter, and just get out of getting out of the whole of it's just about autism was hard, but now that I'm through that bridge, it's much easier. As always, I'm going to have 2 versions of the podcast, just the regular audio one, but also the video one. In the audio one, you're not going to be able to see what I'm presenting. But if you watch the video version of this, you will see the slideshow, and I will talk through it as I progress through the slides. The way I structured the slides was to give the slides a lot of information or specifying my asks. I was talking about the information on the slides, not so much the words on the slides themselves. I had separate speeches written for everything. So this is the one time where watching the video version of this is probably going to make way more sense than listening to the audio, but I'll do what I can. For this part 1, I'm going to go through the slide as a slideshow. This will make way more sense and be much easier to follow if you're looking at the video version of this podcast. When Owen was born, we didn't know anything about ADHD or autism. We just knew that our son loved the water. The bathtub and the pool were his happy place. We didn't know that the sensory and environmental challenges when we went to the pool would result in epic meltdowns as we tried to leave. And that's why I'm here. We understand what it's like to have people look at you and judge you when everything is falling apart. The music is loud, the lighting is bright, the noise from the crowds and water features can be deafening and scary. Lifeguards don't know how they can help. A pool manager doesn't realize that they can simply turn the music off and help alleviate some of the stress. This lack of awareness made my wife and I feel alone, isolated, and ultimately excluded. I am here this evening with 3 asks. Number 1, the creation of regular sensory-friendly swim times or a swim calming schedule. The options would be based on the current available resources that each pool has and doesn't require any special training. Number 2, updating city publications to include affirming language. We all know that the language we use is important to a person's self-identity. Words like accommodation, though, are outdated. Number 3, create a City Speaks survey for disabilities. To properly serve the whole disability community, like any good business, you need to know your customer. I commend the city for the work that it has done for physical disabilities, but it's time to expand our voice. Throughout this presentation, I hope I'll be able to answer 3 questions that may be on your mind. What is my fear? How hard is this to do? And who else does it? I want to thank all the groups and people that I have listed on this slide. Everyone's enthusiasm for this has been inspiring. The solutions in this presentation were gathered from the lived experience from my family and the neurodivergent community. As our city continues to grow, I know you all want to make Surrey the most accessible community that we have. I have letters from some of the supporters with me tonight, but I know that there have been others that have emailed letters of support to your office as well. I want to take a moment and reframe disabilities and neurodiversity. They are not single-item issues. For example, at least 95.8% of all kids who are autistic have a second co-occurring disability. At least 90+% of all people who are ADHD have a second co-occurring disability. So disabilities rarely travel alone. They bring friends, and not the good kind. What happens now is that ADHD and autism are lumped into just autism or just ADHD, but these are separate disabilities. This partly happens because other diagnoses are not funded or properly tracked, which means the numbers are underreported. For example, because autism is funded and tracked more closely, there has been a 167% increase since 2014 in diagnosed cases. The focus has to shift to include all neurodiversity. When you only mention one disability, this isolates. Terms like autism training or autism resource kit should really say supporting neurodiversity or sensory kit. Why are we making it just about one? If we can remove the common barriers, then you are supporting all neurodiversities, not just a select few. So turning off the sound system or adjusting the lights, it goes a long way for everyone. So let's talk about what's out there already. Most places just offer 1 day a month for something sensory friendly. They are at odd and inconvenient times, and that's not really accessible or inclusive. For example, the city of Coquitlam seems to have recently changed from 1 day per month to 2 days, but it's only for 1 hour and it's only at one pool. Coquitlam has 4 pools. While the timing may be inconvenient, the wording in the description of their guide is fantastic. I love it. Number 2, the Museum of Surrey has the first Sunday of each month closed for 2 hours, and I know it's closed down to the public. I do like the wording on the city's website that they have for the museum as well. But again, this is just 1 day per month. Disabilities are lifelong. This is about more than just a sensory-friendly room. Or, why should families have to travel an extra long distance just to access a pool or a facility that's not in their community? Inclusion isn't about training. It's about awareness and dialogue. You don't need autism training to support all disabilities. When you see a behavior, that is the end result of a series of triggers that have overwhelmed someone. Triggers can be sensory or environmental. Find a way to communicate in a non-threatening manner. Acknowledge the person's emotions. They may be able to tell you what they need. Knowing a simple calming routine that someone can follow is also very helpful. And pro tip, always have something special in your back pocket. For example, an Uno reverse card. This way, you can use the Uno reverse card to undo the bad thing that may have just happened. It'll help bring some levity to the situation. If this doesn't sound complicated, great. It's not. Training didn't teach me any of this. Experience did. Here is a very brief list of some of the barriers at the pool and how they may apply to somebody. Number 1, with crowds. If my wife and I think that a venue will have too many people in it and there's no easy access to a safe or quiet place for us to go, we're not even going to try. Number 2, asking staff to turn off the music elicits fear in a parent. We have to go to an authority figure and somehow justify a request to give our child a break. For us, it's yet another gatekeeper. And approximately 85% of the feedback that I received through my engagement stated that the amount of patrons in the pool is a barrier on its own. The reservation system was excellent and provided a limit to how many people could be in one location. In regards to the sobering stat on this slide, it's actually a stat from the US, but all these triggers contribute to the workload of staff. This means lifeguards and staff are more stressed as they have to perform more rescues that could have been avoided. Here's my plan and proposal. Pilot location would be at the Surrey Sports and Leisure Centre in Fleetwood. The timeline for this would be 6 months, starting in October 2023, going to March 2024. Once this pilot has been completed, we can have a debrief, lessons learned, and then roll this out to other communities and facilities. The goal is to bring this to all pools and facilities across the city. And let's talk about why Fleetwood. Fleetwood makes sense. You can't have some facilities accessible and others not. That goes back to my earlier point of having people travel an extra long distance to access something like this outside of their community. Let's talk about the schedule itself. Out of the 112 hours per week that pools operate, this pilot only takes up 8 to 10 of those hours. Choose 2 or 3 of those swim times, whether it's mid-morning, early morning, mid-afternoon, anything that's off-peak, and put those into your schedule. You can still run most of your regular programming with all these adjustments. A word of caution from my experience and what I've seen working with other organizations that require sensory-friendly adjustments. Families are going out of their way to come to your facilities. Please don't schedule lifeguard training during these times. I have witnessed this more than a few times, and it's rude and it's triggering. Cancel the sensory session if you have to accommodate a lifeguard training, or move their lifeguard training to a different time. You have the flexibility to empower disabilities. This is a very small list of solutions that I have put together. When I was training for my triathlon at Surrey Sport, there is no music and the lights are low when we're swimming at 7 a.m. But truthfully, we all wish we could have ridden the water slide after our laps were done. At the sessions I go to help kids who are autistic learn to swim, the water features are generally turned off and the music is turned off. So you can also see by this list that none of these options really cost any money. And there's already forms of sensory swims taking place. There's no special staff training required. What you need to do is build awareness amongst staff. Additionally, signs and kits and sensory-friendly kits, they're incredibly helpful. For example, a sandwich board at the pool entrance and on the pool deck that basically has a countdown timer for how much time is remaining in a sensory-friendly swim. This is a massive help when kids need to transition from one activity to the next. In the bathrooms, place paper towels by the hand dryers and discourage their use. Just put a notice up that brings attention to the fact that it's sensory-friendly time. And with the sensory kits, having sensory-friendly kits that have squishies or other tactile things that appeal to somebody's sensory requirements would be incredibly helpful to have at the front desk. You could also have sound-blocking headphones or sunglasses on the pool deck. This is just a visual sample of what a schedule could look like. As you can tell, mid-morning, the lighting, the foyer is dimmed, the pool lights are dimmed, there's no music and the water features are turned off. Contrast that with sometime on Sunday afternoon, the foyer and the pool lights are still dimmed, but there's no music. However, the water features are now fully on. Signage and wording is important. In fact, it's a bit of a secret weapon. I wanted to recommend some signs and wording that would be extremely helpful to have. Phrases like "for all disabilities." This is important to have on sensory kits because we want everyone to know about it. It's not just for someone who's autistic. If you're ADHD, you can have sensory processing challenges as well. When we don't use this kind of inclusive phrasing, it contributes to the stigma. And it makes it seem like that it's only for one disability. So simply including the words "for all disabilities" really means that other groups have visibility. A sandwich board that has the sensory time that's remaining in a session. This could be a massively helpful tool. People can visually see what time is remaining in a session, and if you keep it in a central place by the lifeguard station or by the entrance when you come into the pool, everyone's going to know what time it is and how much time is left. It's very easy to adjust. It takes seconds for a staff member to do. In the example that you have on the slide in front of you, I had this translated into English, Hindi, Punjabi, Chinese, Korean, and French. This slide is intentionally left blank. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you arrive at the pool with your child for a sensory-friendly swim. When you enter, only some of the lights in the foyer are turned on. You can pick up a sensory kit from the desk because you just forgot your headphones at home. The path to the change room has the lights dimmed. When you get into the change room, you realize that there are no hand dryers running. In the pool, there is no music. The lighting is low, the water features are off, and the hot tub is run at half speed. You know how much time is left in the session because the sandwich board with the countdown timer is out. Now you can let your child know ahead of time when it's time to get ready to leave. Ask number 2 is to update city publications with affirming language and features. The language and terminology used in city documentation needs to be updated and written in plain language that is affirming and accessible. And there are 3 examples of this. The swim guide advertises adaptive swim lessons. Adaptive really should be replaced with accessible. Now, number 1. When applied in this manner, adaptive means that a person is less than a specific expectation. But number 2, the swim requirements to pass an accessible or regular lesson have the exact same criteria. So what exactly makes this adaptive? Number 2, a term like autism training or autism resource kit does not represent all disabilities. In fact, this isolates other disabilities and creates a barrier because many people think that a sensory kit may not be for them and they won't approach the desk and ask. And in facilities, isn't it time to rename family change room to just change room? And when will all the male and female rooms and family rooms just be combined together instead of isolating the different genders? Just make the rooms big enough so you can accommodate large groups. I am also requesting that the City Speaks team collaborate with advocacy groups that I've suggested to create the most comprehensive and inclusive survey to date. No one is afraid to talk about their experiences, but many don't want to talk about it because it doesn't bring about any change. Wording and representation matter. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. All I'm asking you is to make facilities more inclusive and reduce the common barriers on a regular schedule so we don't have to try so hard to have fun.
Thank you for listening to our show.
If you're hearing this message, you've reached the end of the episode, and for that, I want to say thank you. I hope you have enjoyed what you've heard and are walking away with newfound knowledge.
We are the ADHD family.
See you soon for a new episode. I have 3 things to ask of you. Number 1, if you have any comments, questions, or guest ideas, please leave a comment on the Facebook page. Number 2, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps people find us. And number 3, if you want to be a guest on the show or know someone who would make a great guest, contact me through our Facebook. age. This podcast is open to everyone. You don't need to be an expert, just passionate and want to see change. The opinions expressed by the host and guest are not associated with any employer or organization unless otherwise stated.